In a village forgotten by fortune, lived a young girl named Becky. Her hands were blessed with a gift the world had not yet seen, but her life was painted with the harsh strokes of poverty. Food was a daily worry, school was a luxury, and hope was a flickering flame in a relentless storm. Every day was a quiet battle for survival. When Becky turned 12, her parents, burdened by their circumstances, made a heart-wrenching choice. They sent her to live with her mother's older sister, Aunty. Aunty was a woman known less for her kindness and more for her sharp tongue and cold heart. She took Becky in, not out of love, but out of a grudging sense of duty, never letting a day pass without reminding Becky that she was the one paying for her education. But within Becky, a secret world thrived. She had a profound love for making beads. These weren't the simple beads you'd see in the village market. Becky's creations were an explosion of color, shape, and pure imagination. She'd gather discarded things, gleaming shells from the riverbed, colorful bottle tops, even shards of broken glass, smoothed by time, and transform them into breathtaking works of art. Late at night, long after the house had fallen silent, Becky would work by the soft glow of a lantern, threading her dreams, one precious bead at a time. Her talent was a rare and beautiful thing. To Aunty, however, it was worthless. She saw Becky's passion as a distraction, a foolish waste of time. Whenever she found Becky with her beads, she would unleash a torrent of insults, snatching the delicate creations from her hands and burying her under a mountain of chores. But even Auntie's cruelty couldn't extinguish the fire of Becky's creativity. Living in the same house was Auntie's daughter, Fina. She was the same age as Becky, but a world apart in spirit. Fina was spoiled, arrogant, and consumed by jealousy. She despised Becky's quiet, undeniable talent. The resentment grew fiercer after a teacher at school openly admired a pair of earrings Becky had made. Fina began to torment her, calling her work ugly, fit only for the trash. One afternoon, her cruelty peaked. She snatched a necklace from Becky's hands and tossed it around the classroom, watching with a smirk as other children laughed and trampled on the delicate beads. Becky ran home, her heart shattered, tears streaming down her face. But Fina got there first. With a straight face, she spun a wicked lie, telling her mother that Becky was neglecting her studies, spending all her time on useless beadwork. That lie was the spark that ignited a raging fire in Aunty. That evening, Becky walked into a scene of utter devastation. All her beadwork, the fruit of countless sleepless nights and whispered hopes, lay scattered and broken on the dirt floor. With cold, methodical cruelty, Aunty took a pair of scissors and, one by one, cut through each string, each necklace, each bracelet. Becky's cries and pleas fell on deaf ears. When the last bead had fallen, Aunty looked at her and said with chilling finality, "Focus on your books. These beads will lead you nowhere." Becky cried until she had no more tears, her voice a raw whisper. That night the world felt impossibly dark. Something in her young heart hardened. Her spirit was wounded, but deep within the pain, a new kind of fire began to burn, a fire of resolve. After finishing secondary school, life for Becky became a suffocating prison. Aunty refused to let her pursue any further education. Instead, she forced Becky to work in her market shop, a life of grueling, thankless labor. Her days started before the sun rose and ended long after it set. She was perpetually exhausted, too tired to even dream. Her hands, once so full of creation, were now empty. With every empty day that passed, the light in her eyes began to dim. Yet her gift refused to be silenced. Even in her exhaustion, designs danced in the back of her mind. Colors whispered to her in the quiet moments. But she didn't dare touch a single bead in that house. Her creative spirit was locked away, but it was not dead. Salvation arrived in the form of Miss Comfort, her kind former teacher. One day, Becky found the courage to pour out her story, the cruelty, the crushed dreams, the suffocating emptiness. Miss Comfort listened, her eyes filled with compassion. When Becky finished, she took her small, work-worn hands and said gently, "Some gifts from God refuse to die." From that moment on, a secret alliance was formed. Becky began creating her beads again, in stolen moments of quiet, and she would store her precious work at Miss Comfort's house. Her teacher became her champion, her supporter, her believer when no one else was. Then came the annual village festival. It was the one day of the year when hidden talents were brought into the light. A vibrant competition where artisans vied for prizes and the king's personal blessing. Aunty, full of pride, was determined for her daughter Fina to win. She pushed Fina into basket weaving, pouring all her energy into preparing her for the competition. Meanwhile, in the shadows, unseen and unheard, Becky was preparing to. On the morning of the festival, Aunty made her move. She tried to sabotage Becky by sending her on a long, pointless errand to a faraway market, hoping she'd miss the competition entirely. But fate, it seems, had other plans. Realizing the deception, Becky ran. She ran back with all her might, her heart pounding in her chest, arriving at the festival square just as the competition was beginning. Miss Comfort had already set up a display, and there, shimmering under the bright sun, was Becky's work. The beads shone with a light of their own, looking like jewels fit for royalty. When Becky stepped forward to claim them as her own, a collective gasp went through the crowd. The king's own daughters, the princesses, were mesmerized. They playfully fought over her designs, their laughter echoing through the square. The crowd, seeing the sheer beauty and originality of her craft, began to roar with approval. The king himself, moved by the extraordinary talent before him, stood up and, with a voice that carried across the entire square, declared Becky the winner. The village erupted in celebration. But that night, joy turned to ash. Consumed by rage and humiliation over Fina's public failure, Aunty chased Becky out of the house, throwing her few belongings after her. With nowhere to go, Becky walked through the dark, deserted paths to the one place she knew she was safe, Miss Comfort's home. There, for the first time in a long time, she rested. The very next day, the truth of Aunty Cody's and Fina's cruelty was brought before the king and queen. Justice was swift and decisive. They were punished for their wickedness, and Becky was honored. She was given land, materials to continue her craft, and the resources to build a new life. Her gift, once mocked and torn apart, had become her crown. Becky didn't just rebuild her own life. She rebuilt her community. She opened her own workshop where she trained other young girls, teaching them her art. She lifted families out of poverty, and she built a beautiful new home for her parents. The talent her aunt had tried so desperately to bury became a shining legacy that fed and inspired an entire community. And so, the story of a girl whose gift was met with mockery ended with destiny, gloriously fulfilled. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales of resilience and triumph.